Let's see what Sunteray's ordered for today. These pipes are the lining for the poo hole, which is going to be dug in the land behind the plot. And that poo hole will serve the garage toilet. After the slab laying yesterday, they're cracking on building the side wall. Now, Now, something I'm not overly impressed with is the way they're bridging this doorway, which is UPVC, so it's got no strength at all. As you can see, they're using two large pieces of steel. They're not huge pieces of steel either. They're just the largest they've got on site. And well, I think that this door is going to bend because we're going to have bricks right up to where the timbers are there. So we're going to have another 3 courses of blocks across that door. Due to lack of planning on their part, I guess, we haven't got a bond down this part of the wall, but we haven't got the overlap because they built the shower wall here, but they didn't bother to extend this wall along, even though they knew they were going to have to. They could have easily built this on the footing, on the ring beam. They didn't have to wait for the pouring of the concrete to build this. So really they should have built this wall down diagonally so they got a bond all the way up. But they're bonding using steel because they're drilling into the blocks on each level, and they've assured me they've bonded with steel at each level, as they are doing and as they have been doing before with the posts. So steel will go in this groove here. They've started the bonding properly now at this level, and that'll continue up to the roof. I'm not too worried about this. This is only a garage wall, so not too concerned about either of those things I've just pointed out. But one thing's for sure, I won't be allowing them to use steel like that in the house across windows and doors. We're going to have to put a proper reinforced beam in like this across the doors and the windows. They're going to have to spend a bit of time casting it. Life is all about compromise, isn't it? Really, you never get 100% what you want. I suppose what you need to do in life, in any situation, is aim for 110%, and if you're lucky you get 90%. Yesterday we were informed by the group of builders who were going to put the house up, the pillars up and the roof on, that they can't do it. The problem is COVID. The team has got one member with COVID, so they've all had to go into isolation, and they're not as local as I understood. They're actually from another province, from Korat. That means that when they travel here to start work, they're going to be subject to testing, and they're a bit concerned that because they're asymptomatic, they might come up with a positive in their group, and then the whole lot of them are going to have to quarantine here in a government facility as well, because they don't have a home here to basically quarantine in. And that'll be another 14 days. I think there's 5 or 6 of them involved in the team, so he said that he's not keen to do this build at the moment, and he's even suggested we find an alternative team to do that part of the work. So these builders here are going to do it. I mentioned in a previous video how they're very good with wood but not so good with steel. The reason they're not so good with steel is not so much that they don't have the expertise, it's that they don't have the equipment. So we're going to buy the equipment they need, and we have compromised on our roof design to make it a simpler design for them to deal with. And it's, to me, this is what's supposed to be a cheap and small house build. I'm not really interested in fancy designs. I'm interested in practicality more than anything, and cost. So we've gone for an A-frame roof. So that will be an A-frame as you look at it from the road, and then the front will have a slope to it just to give it some shape and to protect the windows at the front more closely from the sun than the A-frame would. And they're quite comfortable doing that. In fact, Suntory said as long as it's an A-frame roof, they can do it. I will be here on site making sure that the posts are set out exactly in the right places, that the footings are correct, and all that sort of gubbins. It's quite good the way the reinforcing has worked out, because we've got a little bit jutting out ready to overlap into the driveway. And these were the supports for the planks that were running along here. So rather than take them out of the holes, they've just bent them over. They'll act as extra reinforcing. So that's very good. And we've got the space here for the driveway to start sitting on the beam that's going in front of the garage. So it's all designed to give plenty of support for the driveway. Underneath here is the filling in around the post, so that will give support for the driveway. And then obviously along the edge we've got the small supporting wall, retaining wall, the top of that. And the driveway will be level for 2 sections of the wall here, and then it will start to slope down. So the first 2 sections will be supported by the top of the retaining wall, and then I'm going to make sure that they put beams across as we go down to give that full support, stop any possibility of problems. So let's show you what's been going on outside. We've cleared this area a little bit, the intention being to give us space to plan out where the footings will be for the house. You can see there are various damp patches around. This one is actually still full of water. What Suntory wanted to do was to dig down a little bit, fill these up with water, and see how quickly it disappeared, to give us a determination as to how solid this area is where the house will be. Around the edges, when she put water in, they collapsed substantially. The soil was up to the retaining wall, and you can see along here how it's gone down by almost 20 centimetres in places. It's probably an average of a good 10 centimetres right the way around the wall here. Now let's get my finger in the right place. Right the way around the wall here. My finger wasn't in the right place, was it? Because I'm looking at a tiny little screen. Let's see if I can walk over there without getting my shoes too muddy. This is what I'm talking about. This is all subsided after water's been put on around the edges. Obviously, I think I mentioned before, it wasn't packed down properly. It was just filled by the tractor pushing the soil in, and there was no weight on that edge at all, because we didn't want to compromise the newly built wall before it was filled with CPAC. So around the edges is probably a little looser than the centre. We filled these holes up last night with water, and the water didn't go down at all while we were here, and we were doing it for about an hour and a half as the light went, and all the water stayed in like this one here. So it's taken a long time for the water to go down, which is quite pleasing. And no fresh subsidence has occurred either. If it was really loose underneath, we would see these holes growing in size very, very quickly. So we're quite confident about the strength of the soil underneath the house. And in terms of the foundations, we're going to dig down to the original level of the ground, which is about 1 metre, and we're going to put substantial footings in, and then the posts on top of those. So we're not going to actually be building on this new soil. Right, it's time for me to sit down in the shade and have my breakfast, or an early lunch, I'm not sure which. Made myself a pile of sandwiches, I've got some coffee and some Pepsi. And I'm just going to sit here and relax for a bit and watch them work.